Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. My name is Bakwi Sabor. My title is chaplain. I'm chaplain because I'm board certified with the U.S. Chaplaincy Task Force. And I devote a lot of my time to serving the prisons throughout Texas in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. So I know that some people shy away from titles, and so do I, and shy away from the title of chaplain. Usually when a Muslim is out front or a leader of something, I know a lot of the Muslim community prefer to use the title of imam. However, it's my position that the title of imam comes with some expectations, and some expectations that I cannot fulfill. So since chaplain is a term that's sort of confined to one who serves in an institution, such as a hospital, a prison, or something like that, I just prefer to, proffer that title, for the things that I do in that regard. I am the founder and administrator of Human Faith, a 501c3 nonprofit organization that currently provides community and transitional housing for the homeless, some support services. We address some food insecurities through our nonprofit restaurant, and a few other things that we like to get into. Disclaimer. I'm not a professional videographer. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm not a professional podcaster or anything like that. This is my first run. And so forgive me if I'm not like other people. I don't have fancy backgrounds. I'm not dressed the way you might like me to be dressed or anything like that. I'm just shooting my best shot, because there's some information that I would like to disseminate through this channel. This channel is called Muslim PPR, and the PPR stands for prisoners, parolees, and re-entry. So the focus of this is about Muslims who are incarcerated, what issues they face while incarcerated, what issues are likely to be faced when making parole and re-entering into the society. I've been serving for about 10 years, and prior to those 10 years, further back in my history, I transcended from this particular population. So I speak from both practical experience and now the experience of being a chaplain inside the prison system. Again, particularly in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. So this is an introduction to the channel, just to do a trial run so I can understand what I'm doing when it comes to the voice recording and the microphones and stuff like that. But it's an opportunity for me to provide some data and to help any subscribers or anybody that will be listening or watching what we will be talking about. So the United States of America has the largest prison system of any nation on earth, the largest number of prisoners of any country, and one of the highest percentages of imprisoned persons of any nation. That's ucsb.edu, who reports that. And you can Google, you can research, and you will just find this to be true. Texas is home to the greatest number of prisons and jails across the United States of America. Texas has the largest prison population, right about 172,000 people. If you look at any of the data that you can find, you will find that the prison population fluctuates between 35 and 54% of African Americans. Mind you, African Americans are only 13% of the United States population. But fluctuates between 35 and 54% of the prison population. The Texas Department of Criminal Justice is housing about 35%. 35% of the inmates in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice are African American. Muslims make up 1%. All Muslims, all those who ascribe to Islam or call themselves Muslims, are 1% of the United States population. However, we find data that shows that Muslims are 9% of the prison population, and that among the 9% of the prison population that are Muslim, roughly about 70% of those Muslims are converts to Islam. These converted inmates are mostly African American within a growing, and second to that is a growing Hispanic minority. According to a 2003 estimate by FBI, there are 350,000 Muslims in federal, state, and local prisons. About 30,000 to 40,000 more converting every year. So this is a very important topic. Now, here's another thing that I need to say. I'm not promoting this program simply because I'm Muslim. You know, I would love to do a program that just talks about the prison population in general and the issues that are faced with prisoners and their reentry. But Muslims are underrepresented in prisons because there's not enough volunteers from the Muslim community. It's the Muslim community that's not accessing the Muslims that are in prison. Prisons tend to be located in remote areas. Muslims are only 1% of the United States population and have a tendency to reside in metropolitan areas. And see, in those remote areas, there are enough people of other faiths, particularly Christians and Christian churches and Christian ministries in the most remote places that can actually serve these prison units. So this is a topic to be discussed. And apparently, it's a topic of interest amongst those who are not Muslim. There's a site, a website called Quora. I hope that I am pronouncing that right. It's called Quora. It's a place to share knowledge and better understand the world. But basically, people pose questions on Quora, and you have a lot of people who are answering the questions or giving input about the question that is being asked. So I did run across a question in Quora that reads, 80% of U.S. prisoners who convert to a new religion convert to Islam. Why is Islam such a popular choice? Should anything be done about this? So apparently the person who posed the question has a concern about the growing population of Muslims inside of prison, and that 80% of U.S. prisoners who do convert to a religion, they're converting to Islam. Now, when you look at the responses to the questions, most people focused on the last part of the question, should anything be done about this? So you see a lot of negative comments about Muslims and a lot of negative comments about Islam and that kind of thing. But it would seem more prudent to me to focus on the first part of the question and ask ourselves, why is the conversion rate so high in prison towards Islam? I think if we begin to investigate and answer that question, that both sides of the fence will benefit. In other words, Muslims certainly benefit because we now have an approach of how to serve and nurture those who are converting to Islam, but even those who are opposed to Islam. If you get a better understanding as to why the conversion rate is so high, then maybe you can begin to understand what potential deficiencies there may be in the propagation of other faith groups as to why Islam would be a more popular choice for prisoners. So to give some more data, in 2016, the total Muslim population in the United States reached approximately 3.3 million, which that was about 0.9% of the U.S. population. If we was to look at the data for 2022, we would see that we're basically 1%. Yet in the years between 2001 and 2014, it has been estimated that 250,000 U.S. convicts converted to Islam in the U.S. prison system, making prison converts to Islam just from those years, not counting prison converts to Islam before or since then, account for a significant portion of all Muslims in the United States. Now, this is a message to my brothers and sisters in Islam. The data is showing that a significant portion of the 1% of Muslims in the United States, a significant portion, are those who converted to Islam while in prison. In 2011, a Pew Research showed data estimated that Muslims made up 9% of the 1,598,780 United States inmates in state and federal prisons, despite Muslims being only 0.8% of the general U.S. population in the year prior. Muslim prisoners have been characterized as a danger or a threat for radicalization in the media, but the data is showing this to be false, because the data is actually showing the rehabilitative value of our brothers and sisters who are converting to Islam in prison. Little evidence indicates widespread radicalization or foreign recruitment. Rather, research has shown that Islam has a long history of positive influence on prisoners, including supporting inmate rehabilitation for decades. And these findings are not from Muslims. This is from the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. So this is not a Muslim entity that gathered the data. So this show, hopefully, will highlight, some questions and begin to answer some questions and some inquiries that we should be having on both sides of the fence. The key questions that I've pointed out for the show to address is why inmates convert to Islam, especially racial minorities, particularly African Americans and Latinos. What are the struggles of Muslim inmates? And there are many. What are the needs of Muslim inmates? What are the needs of Muslim inmates once released? Closing out with some more data, in 2021, we had 331.9 million Muslims in America, according to Count. If the prison population is 9% of the prison population, then you could fix the numbers. In other words, you can do the math and you will find out about 3,319,000 Muslim prisoners in that year. In 2022, there's an estimated 2 million prisoners, and about 180,000 of them are Muslims. This is a very important topic, my dear brothers and sisters, and those who are not Muslim. I think it should be an important topic to you as well. if you want to understand the conversion rate and why people, because a lot of your loved ones, you know, just looking at the data, a lot of your loved ones who unfortunately might end up in a jail or a prison may find themselves inclined towards Islam. And I think it would be better to have an understanding of it as opposed to any misconceptions or preconceived ideas about Islam. Again, my name is Baqui Sabor, Chaplain Baqui Sabor, and this is Muslim PPR. We hope that you will subscribe and follow us as we begin to develop more news, more stories, more insight from the inside, particularly in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.